ones, the tenderness of God is heard in every sighing wind. The gentleness of God is heard in all manifestations of the soul as it speaks unto the outer self and bids that outer self be still. For in the clamoring of mortal terror there is bred upon the planet myriad thought forms which produce distress in the consciousness of mankind, whereas those who foster and nourish tranquility are scattering seeds of happiness to the four winds for the improvement of the climate of consciousness upon earth and for the blessing of untold generations to come. For there is an enduring quality, gracious ones, in right thought and right action, which far outlives the individual monad in its individualized embodiment. When individuals understand the effect of their own influences, they are often brought to the very knees of their divine presence, and there they seek to comprehend the all-knowing mind of God and to fathom the intent of that mind, that they may be able, through divine consonance in manifestation, through concord with eternal principle, to release into the atmosphere those qualities which, as a mounting tide of light, will set the world aright. The dominion over the earth was given unto mankind, gracious ones, and this per se does not only include outer conditions, but it includes the internal realm of the spirit of man, the realm of peace and tranquility within, the realm of comprehension, the realm of knowledge and contact that reaches up to understand the great heights of God, from whence cascades the manifestations of his light substance as a fountain of light descending to the earth to brighten the hopes of the world. Gracious ones, the hour is now at hand when greater and greater scientific feats shall be accomplished upon the planet by your scientists. The day is at hand when an era of hope and prosperity such as never before has graced the earth may well come into manifestation. But I am certain that the forebodings of civilization, the rumblings of mortal intent toward destructivity, is also apparent to the more observant among you, who in your conversations with your own presence and your pleas for enlightenment do realize at the same time that you are making them that the world in action today is the world in peril. For the actions of the world are not all kind or benign. No, not by any means. For the actions of mankind are often tinged with all of the aspects of horror, of the most destructive stories released by Edgar Allan Poe, for example. And mankind feel oftentimes as though they are in a pit of mortal terror with a pendulum of destruction swinging above them. Let me then speak to you, precious ones, the word of assurance that heaven, in its great intent toward the earth, has not in any way abandoned the chelas of light and the students of the sacred fire, nor have we abandoned the ordinary man who does not have the comprehension of higher dimensions such as ye have. Rather, precious ones, we have consulted together more often as the peril of the world has increased, and we have sought ways and means of how we may not only assuage the terror of mankind, but remove the cause and core, thus preventing future outbreaks of all forms of mortal imperfection. The mission of the Christ 2,000 years ago upon the planet, the great outreach of peace of the Buddha, the manifestation of all sacred fire intents through many religions, has not served to stem the tide of mankind's aggressiveness or prevent brutal wars from breaking out upon the face of the earth with all of their destructivity and fruitless accomplishment. Gracious ones, perhaps you will see the irony in my statement, fruitless accomplishment. For there are some upon the planet, and there are some even in diplomatic circles, who seem to feel that the outbreak of war is not so terrible, providing it does not affect the circle of their own personal world. These individuals seem to feel that if they can only have a personal immunity thereto, that war is not in itself too bad, consoling themselves with the idea that afterward there may come about an era of peace and prosperity. Let me tell you, precious ones, that no war has ever produced the seeds of peace. Peace itself is a quality of God, and it must be cultivated within the heart and being of man. Wars stem from personal unrest and personal greed. They are started by hatreds that are not calmed. They are started by storms that continue to grow and expand in human dimensions of thought and feeling. The way then to end these struggles is through understanding, and true understanding vouchsafed to mankind from within his own soul and heart through internal communion. Those who study past histories may find there, precious ones, many statements which would be calculated to excite mankind to war and hatred. But those who study the internal security of their own being, the great power of creativity that lies within the human soul, those who study the hand of God as God has moved men, they are able to understand how to produce peace upon earth. The heads of state, gracious ones, are often in a state of great terror themselves. Yet, at times, they throw this terror off as a means of the preservation of personal sanity. And they say to themselves, well, I am doing my best, and I cannot do any more. And I would like to point out to the masses of mankind that when an individual is charged with the responsibility of being a head of state, that individual cannot always maneuver every condition or circumstance to his liking. He is often the subject of cruel and brutal jokes, the butt of horrible criticisms which are leveled at that one, simply because he seeks to do his best. And quite frankly, oftentimes men who are heads of state are not as evil as other men imagine them to be. It is true, of course, that in the course of history and human events there have been many tyrants upon the planet, and there are many today who dwell in high places. Such as these do not seek to do their best. They seek but to express the tyranny of an ego long subdued and repressed, which at last, by reason of its attainment, is able to break forth and spew over the people of the world all of the internal hatreds which they have stored up as a coiled spring for many, many years under great tension. I would like to point out to you then, precious ones, that these men have in reality aught but mortal power in their hand. They have only temporal power, and their day is done quite quickly. The pages of history will show that in many of the wars and occurrences of history in the past, that tyrants have often lived but for a short time, and those who have lived longer have often had cruel people underneath their boot, and these cruel people deserved the tyranny that presided over them. I would like to point out to you then that the mass karma of the world is a tremendous undertaking even for the lords of karma. To untangle the threads of mortal thought and feeling for thousands of years, to bring together life streams in divers places so that they can best work out their destiny, is a Herculean task of magnificent proportions when viewed from inner levels, seen through the glass of our consciousness, through the crystal clear images evoked by the Christ presence of every man, is a tingling experience indeed. And it brings home to all who see it the great need for humility and faith. I stress these two qualities because humility will bring to man the awareness of his brother, and faith will bring to him the awareness of his God. Through this application, the application of his heart to deity, and the application of his heart to the needs of man, he is able to rise in a selfless manner into the arms of cosmic Christ's service, and thereby seek to wipe away in God's name some of the tears from the world scene, and to bring greater freedom and compassion to a world in bondage. For I ask you in this day and age, most gracious ones, what struggle does ensue of a personal nature in each individual life, known and unknown? What struggle does ensue behind the diplomatic scenes of the world, known and unknown? What struggle does ensue from inner levels of cosmic light when ascended masters seek to reach the earth and to bring mankind the quickening power of light, and mankind turn away a deaf ear? What struggle does ensue, known or unknown? The grace of heaven, as heaven seeks to lift the pall of mortal reason, is immense. And it would seem as though the grace of heaven in all of its immensity would be sufficient to lift every speck of mortal darkness forever from the world. And yet so great is that darkness in human consciousness, that density of oppression lingering over the years, that mankind can scarcely grasp in many cases the simplest thoughts about spiritual experiences, for they have dwelled long in the realm of mortal thought and feeling, and their concerns are indeed basic to their survival, the survival of their physical form and their old associations in the time stream. Let me then say to you, as you gain greater senses of eternal value, you will care less and less for the things of the world, yet you will build well that which you build, for you will recognize that it is the outworkings of eternal values within your soul that cause you, one and all, to do that which thou doest well. Thus the kingdom of God is enhanced by men of virtue and valor, by women of contemplation and action, those who understand the need to ponder in their heart, and who understand the need to come out from that state of ponderment into the arena of action, and forthrightly evoke purity, holiness, love, artistic understanding, and culture in the world, in the youth of the world, and in their contemporaries. Thus you are emissaries of God, ambassadors of light, and your role in the world is to continue, according to the capacity of your soul, to serve that holy cause that will produce fruit upon the divine tree, fruit upon the human tree, and fruit for all eternity. Ladies and gentlemen, although the world may be in peril, remember his words, let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. Remember, gracious ones, that while you continue to struggle against all of the forces of darkness and evil, all the forces that seek to bring you into bondage of a personal nature, All the forces on the world scene manipulated by the black magicians and those hordes of shadow who seek to bring the world and yourself into domination. That we ourselves, serving on the cause of right and Christ's magnificence, are also engaged with you shoulder to shoulder in this struggle. And if the world scene seems bleak to you at this hour, consider the tender threads of consciousness. Consider the tender threads of contact which we wield, and recognize how frightful the black pall of human misery extends itself over the centuries as a shadow of oppression, seeking to bring mankind into bondage. And we are witnesses not of a segment of that, but witnesses of the span of the centuries. We see it all in all of its human grossness, and we recognize that it has no power. And we tell ourselves and make the fiat, it has no power, and it has none in the realm of the divine. But in the realm of humanity, there it has continued to serve as a veil of severance from the presence of life. As the veil in the Holy of Holies was rent in twain, so it is our prayer that the veil of evil shall one day be repudiated by men of goodwill in all circles and states of consciousness, by men in the diplomatic service of the governments of the world, by men in positions of leadership and rule, by men and women of culture and instruction, by those who teach and by those who are taught, by men and women of science, and by men and women of exploration, that the great fruits of the world, in search of a new world, may be mustered together as Isabella assisted Columbus, and the Santa Maria of spiritual search may go forth across the uncharted seas of the future destiny of man, both in time and space and in spirit, until he is able to summon from the heart of the Eternal One for all mankind those values which enable men to achieve, to attain, to win, and to hold their freedom, not only in essence, but in every activity of their lives. I thank you. Beloved, mighty Cuzco, brethren of infinite fire, we are yours to command, when light is employed by light, in the service of light, magnification occurs, and all that is abundant, expansive, and amplifies the power of the soul of God in man is spread abroad throughout the universe as tangible light rays of immortal substance. As we ponder the seemingly incomprehensible task of clearing the mind and being of mankind made in the image of God, yet who has descended into the density of self-negation, we are aware of the magnitude of that task. But our confident hearts are attuned with the great God source, the great God flame, beloved ones, with whom all things are possible. You, in your search for God, must cognize it is an outreach for higher dimensions. You, in your search for God, must understand are stepping upon rungs as of a ladder. Some have attained to a higher degree of the wisdom of God, and others are on the lower rungs. Let not those upon the lower rungs judge those upon the higher, and yet I ask that those upon the higher rungs should not judge those upon the lower, but judge this rather, that ye ascertain how you may assist one another by the power of love to attain greater peace of mind and the ability to render a cosmic service. Let me point out with the clarity of the God mind that throughout the world there are a number of people that in a relative sense you could almost call numberless to your own world and being, who are prepared and are preparing according to the level of their understanding to render service unto God through rendering service unto man. These seek to be their brother's keeper. These seek to hold thoughts of beauty and power, to make attunement with higher levels of inspiration and intelligence, that they may convey and act as conveyors of the infinite light unto others. Yet many of them, they are legion, they are a vast multitude, will war against one another in the name of God and in the name of Christ, simply because a brother or a sister has not attained to a certain level of understanding does not mean that that one will not one day do so. And simply because a pattern of error is manifesting somewhere in some level of comprehension does not mean that the power of God cannot clear the way for the light to flow and for healing to occur. O mankind who seek to serve the cause of world good, understand then how carefully you must act in the name of God so as to prepare the way for the coming of the infinite Christ Spirit. It is entirely different, precious ones, for those who have attained a complete understanding of the rounds of God within the framework of a certain idea, to then be able to clearly pinpoint that idea unto others. This does not assure that the others will be able to comprehend, and therefore there is a great need for understanding of the preparing of the way of the incoming Christ intelligence by mankind. that they understand the need to prepare the way in the individual they would instruct by spiritual means, whereby the barriers of incomprehension are removed, just as a gardener will till the soil and prepare it by removing the weeds and breaking up the grounds and clods, so must mankind understand the need for a spiritual fallowness of soil. The good earth itself, precious ones, must be prepared to receive the good seed. And men must understand that as John the Baptist did mightily go before the Christ, so there must go from the heart of the would-be instructor the infinite spirit of flaming perfection that will remove the barriers from the minds and consciousness of those they would teach and instruct. You must understand the power of the threefold flame, and you must understand the power of the flame of God, the principle of your own divine I am presence will flow forth at your command and consume through the power of transmutation's ray the negative overlay upon precious immortal substance, and then change it into a miracle of cosmic perfection. This is the preparation, the way shower that goes before the incoming Christ intelligence. Precious ones, one of the great errors of mankind in their instruction, and as we see it, unfortunately, in all activities hitherto manifesting upon this planet, is a lack of proper preparation of those they would instruct, and therefore only the few are able to find the way, for the many continue in the density of their own creation, their minds surfeited and opaqued with the substance of mortal density. We therefore have elected now to speak to you in a manner of the highest mentor, that you may understand the need to enter in to that preparatory way as you instruct men, that the more responsive among mankind may hear, and hearing understand. For unless understanding in the mind of man occur, of what value is the instruction? And unless action follow the instruction, of what value is the instruction? Ours is a way of clearing the mind and world of mankind with the infinite power of light, so as to prepare the way for the building of God's temple. You must understand, precious ones, that the light from the heart of God that seeks to find entree into your world cannot, because of the power of free will, enter into those islands of mortal density within you, which you have protected with the stamp of self and have labeled mine. These islands are inviolate even to God himself, for he has not taken from man the power of qualification of all substance, but has given man a limited power of qualification in this era and in this age. Men have continued to abuse that power, yet the Most High God would not, in his great wisdom and love, make of men puppets to his will, but desires them to come lovingly to the feet of truth itself, and there to worship at the shrine of truth, and honor truth with the concept of infinite beauty. As you behold truth, beautiful truth, within your own mind and consciousness, it will be a pillar of fire by night and a cloud of witness by day. It will lead you to the promised land through all the vicissitudes of mortality and all the crowding in thoughts of mortal vanity, if you will keep your eyes upon the goal and upon the pinions of mighty truth. Truth, gracious ones, may be misunderstood by many, and versions of truth may be as many as the people of the world, as a great multitude. But in the eyes of God, truth is one. And so when this great common denominator of truth has performed her perfect work, you will find compatibility as a mighty spirit, the Spirit of truth itself, blazing the trail before you to unite hearts in the bond of true brotherhood. There are those precious ones who have shunned their brothers because they have felt they were following the injunctions not to run riot with those who were pursuing the wrong path. You must rightly divide the word, precious ones. There has never been authority given unto mankind for cruelty in the name of religion or in the name of God. The separation, precious ones, is an automatic one, and it is performed for you by the power of the two-edged sword of truth which is within you and which proceedeth out of your mouth. You have no need then, gracious ones, to be unkind or to be repulsive unto those who do not understand truth as you see it. You have a need to cleave unto God and to act toward those who sincerely seek so as to clear the way for the incoming of the Christ mind within them. There are many who would draw you into inordinate conversation. They would take little grains of sand that seem to them to be momentous or mountains and cast them within the oil of your pure love to impede the movement of your service to life. They know not what they do. Ours is not to condemn them, but to understand them, but above all to understand the need to embrace truth and to recognize truth for yourselves as at a progressive level, one that continually spirals upward as a mighty spiral staircase rising to the heart of God. You need not look to the left or to the right, for your own divine presence within you will prompt you when the need is there to serve mankind. You need not be oblivious to that call when it comes clearly and firmly into your world. You are given truth in order to serve and be served by the powers of light for the cause of your own freedom and for the freedom of mankind. But I trust that you will understand that those who are set in mind and heart and determined that their way is best will not dislodge themselves because you say so. They are not responding to the spirit of the ascended masters, and they have listened and hearkened unto spirits of seduction from astral levels. In view of this fact, precious ones, you need not think that they will hearken to you because you say it. You need not think that they will pay heed to the voices of truth itself because they are presently engaged in an activity that seems to honor their own self and lift them up to the place of seer, where they can claim to be children of the Most High God and teachers of great light. This, of course, has posed a problem for the undiscerning, for those early come into the service of God, those just turned to receive and perceive the light. For discrimination is often not given to such as those, and they are tried for a time and a half a time, against the day when they will be able to clearly see and perceive the spiritual power that breaks the bread of life to all and dispenses to all God's children the sacred word of consolation. Yet it cannot be denied, gracious ones, that mankind differ. It cannot be denied that they differ in their understanding, that they differ in their levels of service, that they differ in their internal comprehensions and the power of their spiritual body. There are many, precious ones, whose spiritual body is relatively undeveloped. They are truly babes in Christ, to whom belongs the milk of the Word of God. Yet there are others who deserve the strong meat, and they shall have it. The problems of heaven are many, even as the problems of earth are many. And there is no problem greater in heaven than the deliverance of the mankind of earth, made in the image of God, who know not themselves and who comprehend through the levels of mortal density. How shall we illumine them without a teacher? And how shall we send forth a teacher except that one be ordained of God? The great claim, then, for mankind who would be instructors in the light must be derived from the Holy Spirit. It must be derived from the great levels of intelligence presided over by our Lord, the Mahachohan. You must understand that the Spirit of truth and the Spirit of God is one, and that there is no gulf or chasm between the Father and the Son. Comprehension of God requires the eternal cycles in order to come to fruition. As you observe the cycles of nature and watch how that in her season, as spring comes forth, nature blossoms and follows the cycle to completion, so you must understand in the Spirit of God there comes forth first the spring of man's aspirations to find and to seek God. And through the long summer of cultivation and search, mankind continues to flourish and to expand his facilities. Frail at times, yet mighty, these facilities continue until at last the harvest has come and the spiritual grain is gathered into the storehouse of God for the individual. The causal body is whitened with a great harvest of spiritual graces and energies. The long search at last, then, does bear the fruit on ear and in grain. In grain within the substance of the soul is the manifestation of completion's goal. You see, precious ones, when that cycle then is complete, it is but the beginning of another. After what amounts to sometimes a short winter's sleep, mankind must understand then that in the plan of the Infinite One, the cycles turn and return until the soul performs her perfect work. And there in manifestation is a victor, not a vanquished one. Those who are vanquished must understand this is an action of the temporal world, and it is projected often at the sons of God who would be sons of God in spirit and in truth. They are made to feel the inadequacies of themselves. They are made to feel the seeming fruitlessness of their manifestation. And this is true oftentimes just before the harvest sun has tinged the sky with golden dawn. I would like you then to know that the hopes of God continually and eternally expand from spiritual levels, reaching out the hands of God in order to contact mankind with a feeling of his infinite grace. But the spoilers are many who go forth into the harvest fields with the seeds of weeds and the seeds of doubt, distrust, and disaffection. They spread abroad among the brethren seeds of distrust of this one against that one. They seek to bring mankind into the traitor's toils. For the traitor's toils, precious ones, are often but the toils of mankind's ignorance. And it is the ignorance of mankind that causes him to perform acts of treachery against the divine one and know it not. Think you, precious ones, as some seem to do, that entered into the heart of man is the spirit of betrayal of the Christ? I tell you, nay, for there are none who have followed with the Christ in sincerity and truth who could earnestly and sincerely betray him and know what they do. All who have betrayed have always, precious ones, been those who have been lost in the wilderness of ignorance and confusion. Therefore I make my plea this day for the clarity of the white stone. Do you know what the white stone is? The white stone is, precious ones, the crystallization of the image of God in form, in mind, and in being. It is the crystal image of pure perfection, and it cannot be contaminated, because in the hardening process there is no room for exterior debris, and there is no room for the penetration of psychic substance or of that which divides and conquers mankind through its division. This is the substance of Almighty God, by which men conquer. Those then who are conquered by their outer self and are conquered by others are those who have not permitted the inflow of this precious substance into their world, but have rather accepted psychic effluvia manifesting from all manner of sources and seeking to find entrance and lodging in their world. I call to you then today, who desire to see truth expand upon earth, to understand how important understanding is. And yet the world is filled with those who have crystallized in their consciousness not the white stone, but all manner of debris which they have qualified with the power of truth in the dullness of their own error, and they know it not. They cannot discern the voice of truth from the voice of error, and in this state of confusion they wander, as you have said it, O mankind, from pillar unto post, and I say to you, back from post to pillar. In between their wanderings, gracious ones, while they are not anchored either to post or pillar, they are often twisted and turned by the howling winds as of a banshee, which divides mankind from the sanity of right action. They are caught up in the psychic effluvia of those who have lived hundreds and thousands of years ago, and are, in the words of the prophets, wandering stars to whom is reserved the mist of darkness forever. They have, precious ones, continued embodiment after embodiment to serve the powers of darkness, and they love darkness rather than light, for their deeds are evil. The deceivers, then, who fall within this category often make capital of those sons of God who wander from pillar to post. Do you see, precious ones, how easy it is for mankind in their state of becoming, in their state of unknowing, to be fleeced by the powers of invisible legions of darkness? I would point out to you then how clearly is the import before you of heeding the words of the Christ. Be a light that is set upon a hill. Hide not your light beneath a bushel. Love one another, even as I have loved you. And they do forget, precious ones, the meaning of the "as I have loved you." The love of the Son for the creation is the love of the brother for brother. It is the love of service that would raise mankind from one level of service and attainment unto another. How is it then that men are so easily deceived that after years of cleaving unto righteousness, they will hearken to the human voice that seems to come forth to them from friend and bids them turn against the very powers of light that have given them all that they possess, yet they know it not? We urge you therefore to cleave to truth and to Christ and to the rightness of the law that bids man to do unto others as he would be done by. Oh, the blindness of human hearts when caught up in the delusion of one tiny religious idea, who will instantly, as it were, turn against their brother and in God's name seek to do him the greatest disservice and despite. We who seek to unite mankind, not in order to form a super state or a super religion, but in order to permit the great supernal glory of God to flow through all lives, say unto you today that the time has come when the yoke of human oppression must be thrown off by all, when all must understand the need to cleave to the light and the truth and the purity of God's effort that has made such a noble advance for the planet and its evolutions, but has been hindered century after century by those spoilers who have wandered into the fields of God and sought to divide and conquer mankind. We today then, knowing the noble effort that has been expended in past times, knowing the great struggles that are imminent today in the world and in the flesh, as the spirit of man seeks to extricate itself from those bonds, bid all arise in spirit and go to the Father's house in consciousness. Enter into the Father's love for mankind and for his creation which he has made. Understand that that love is tangible substance that must be drawn forth. Understand that a charge of that substance must be accumulated in your causal body and in heart and hand, as well as in head, in order to give you the power of God that will conquer at the hour of need. Understand then how that grace must abound and peace be multiplied. Understand how that you must be alert to the inroads of the evil one, whether those inroads be attempted in the subtlety of your own mind, or whether those inroads be attempted by the whisperings of another. I tell you in God's name, the power of the light, as it is in heaven, must expand. Can you imagine the angels or archangels, precious ones, and I smile as I say it, whispering to one another, observe the tarnish on that angel's halo? Can you imagine the archangels questioning the length of the hem of a garment of another angel? Can you imagine criticism in the kingdom of God? Can you imagine God whispering unto one of the angels, observe that poor soul down there, how scrawny that individual is and how undeveloped? In the name of heaven, gracious ones, since when has heaven resorted to criticism of the creation which God has made in perfection and wielded in the power thereof? Perfection and power are God's, and the intent of God is to vest the entire creation with every good gift which he himself has fashioned. How is it then that mankind, claiming some affinity with deity, can continue to whisper and to gossip and to talk against one another? How is it that mankind can do this with upright head? I tell you that Saint Germain has wasted and I would like to underline this word, wasted tons and megatons of cosmic energy seeking to deliver the student body of this activity and other activities from the pains of wrong gossip and false talking. People speak without knowing whatsoever they are speaking about in the dull-wittedness of their own mortal self, and as though they were hypnotized by one another, they continue to parade the imperfections and misfortunes of others before the screens of their minds. I tell you, precious ones, your pathway of deliverance is in consort with the Divine One. It is in honor that prefers one another and honors one another with the garments of Almighty God. Tear not then the garments of light from those who serve with you. Tear them not from any man, but vest all mankind as God does with the blessings of light. Understand that the power you wield is very great, and when individuals in their ignorance seek to destroy you by projecting rays of hatred against you and misqualified substance, if the power of love from your being flashes forth and contacts that, do you think, precious ones, that it will not produce a flash of flame that will consume to the uttermost all that vicious substance and return it into the world of those who ignorantly send it forth? You need not fear, precious ones, if you understand the fullness of this law, for the law itself will deliver you. But when there is a particle of fear in your world that perhaps that one has penetrated your substance and will create some pattern of human creation that will bring you a condition unwanted by you and manifest some form of disease or destruction, then by your own thought you cause that substance to lodge within your flesh form. But when you call to the powers of light, and you say unto the powers of light, I am a son of God, and I charge in my heart this day the substance that is mine to command with the flame of love from the hand of Almighty God, and I send it forth everywhere, in all directions from my being, to perform the perfect work of God, and to return to me with all the divine love which I send out. I tell you, it will gather a harvest of completion for you, and those who seek to do you harm will be burned as to ashes by the thought of misqualified substance within their own world. And this is a means of cleansing and catharsis to the entire universe. But you cannot do as they do and misqualify as they misqualify and not be a part of them. And if you are a part of them, then you are no part of us. You see, precious ones, we are lovers of God, lovers of righteousness, and lovers of infinity. We are not then engaged in an activity of the finite mind that seeks to crush the mighty manifestation of the Christ Spirit that sometimes seems to many to be but a lusty infant seeking to find expression here. I tell you, the Christ at inner levels has manifested his victory long ago, and those who would have and share in that victory to return to the heart of the Father must practice the law as he taught it, and cannot continue to name him in name without naming him in deed. For this is the way to come to the seat of infinite judgment and hear the words, Depart from me, ye cursed, for they have caused the curse of mortality to rest upon themselves by accepting the activity of mortal mind as opposed to the Christ mind. This, then, is the means of your deliverance, to cleave to that which is good and to abhor that which is evil without abhorring mankind. You must understand the difference. Mankind themselves are sons of God, and when you cleave to the God flame within them, you amplify that flame. When you cleave to the mortality within them, you become a part of it. And as that corruptible substance then enters into your world, you become a bit more corrupted by it, rather than be delivered from the corruption which is in the world and which is of the world. The things that are of God are in the kingdom, and the kingdom is within you, and within you is the flame of the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant, the rainbow of promise that connects your heart with the heart of God in the great central sun. So long as you are wedded to the old habits of thought and feeling, you will always find that action taking its toll within you to some degree, more or less. But when you let go of that substance and let go of that psychic activity, that penetration that desires to take all the old substance of aeons of the past and bring it into the present, you will understand that all of that must be put aside, and you must replace it by the future which looms before you as the hopes of God for your own advancement in the light. God, as Father, has hope for each son, and it is his hope that is the Christ within you, the light that must be expanded until hope through faith brings forth charity, and the threefold flame is relit within mankind and expanded without limit until it lives in you and moves with you into the world as God in action here below. Do you see, precious ones, the import that I have brought to you today, the accent that I have brought to you today? It is not a temporal one. It is a permanent one. Yet mankind continue day after day to weave into the wonderful, precious stream of their life the substance of muddied consciousness. Now is the day of salvation. Now is the accepted time. You hear me today. Your hearts understand. Your minds can comprehend. But as action, you shall be free. Ladies and gentlemen, children of the Most High God, wheresoever you are, I address myself to you. I, Cuzco, bring from the great temples of light the tide of resurgent energy that returns to the heart of the Father as service in his name, as right thought in his name, as right action in his name, as the contact with the highest. Gloria in excelsis Deus, glory unto God in the highest. This is the expression of our hope. I thank you. the winds that blow from Darjeeling, and we are reminded at this moment, seeming half a time late in the extinguishing of the lights, that you have heard a truly remarkable release from the hand of the Elohim of peace, and that that release was sent unto you for the scourging of your souls, and that multiplicity of cosmic harmony abide within your hearts one and all. In the domain of our concept of summitry has been the achievement in self of victory, and we therefore would carve out not only your individualized destiny, but the destiny of all men upon the planetary body, and for the establishment of a victorious set of circumstances at a time when the world seems to find itself swept so easily from the Lord's table as crumbs. I call to your attention then the need to understand the meaning of the body of Christ. Identity is one thing, but soul identity is another. And when the soul identity of God is the goal men are seeking, they will find that no sacrifice is too great, no consecration too mighty to place upon the altar of holy truth. I have served, and I will continue to serve, so long as the open door be held for my coming. And in your hands, as men, rests a responsibility to an age. I stand at the door and knock. Thank you. The Elohim of peace. I am the peace commanding presence. I am the presence of divine peace that flows out into the universe, encapsulating and ensouling for all eternity the vibratory action of that peace which is the fullness of divine happiness, without contention, basking in the freedom of the all-knowing mind of God, which knows always that peace is everywhere, the victorious radiance of divine satisfaction with the fulfillment of the thought of God. Mortal reason may contend, precious ones, with the attitude of peace, and may assert itself as anti-peace. This has no power within the domain of the infinite presence, for God, seated upon his throne of infinite, all-powerful wisdom and love, extending itself into manifold experience, is that presence that always embodies the peace derived from the eternal knowing that God holds the pattern for freedom, for victory, and for every divine quality, for every manifestation of himself, and will always, precious ones, maintain the correct attitude toward the Godhead, and thus toward the myriad manifestations of the Godhead, in form and in transit, the state of becoming the glory of God. Mankind have said Sic transit gloria mundi. Thus passes the glory of the world. But I assure them that thus the glory of God passeth not away, but is eternally a feeling of that peace which comes not from false senses of security, but from the knowledge and the certain knowledge that all is well within the Godhead and will always be so. You cannot disturb or affright the Godhead, the omnipotence of God. You cannot affright or disturb universal law or universal love. For universal law and universal love, precious ones, is always most impersonal, and yet holds for each person the security of their own God happiness. When peace is secured by an individual, it must not always be deemed to be secured at any price. For the price is obedience, precious ones. And this is not just any price, but it is the full consecration of a life stream to the heavenly ideal, which recognizes that the world and all of its turmoil can never produce perfection and never will. Only by attunement with the powers of creation, of the powers of creativity, of the powers of love and light, can man hold the pattern of peace. Whenever you turn, precious ones, to outer conditions and seek to find therein the tranquility of the moment or even the lifetime, you will often find disappointment springing into manifestation because mankind simply are not aware of the extent of the power of divine tranquility into the domain of human turmoil. They seem to feel, because they are aware through the power of their senses of disturbances in outer conditions, that the power of God is not there. This, precious ones, is a fallacy in mortal thought. It is also a fallacy in mortal feeling. For we know that the power of God is omnipresent, and the peace of God in the omnipresence of God is everywhere manifesting, yet requires the soul discrimination of the individual to make that full measure of attunement that will bring about a quieting of the storms derived from the human ego in its expression, and will replace those storms by the all-commanding presence of God. When the Master Jesus said, "Peace, be still," it was an invocation calculated to draw forth from the Godhead and from the power of the Elohim the fullness of cosmic peace. Upon him was bestowed the title Prince of Peace, for he consorted to express as ambassadorial the aspects of our office. And he was upon the planet the fullness of the principle of cosmic infinite peace. Individuals are often caught in their own traps of mortal thought and feeling, and their poor hearts are troubled by many things, simply because they do not become quiet for a moment and permit the infinite peace of God to seep through the gross penetration levels of human thought and feeling. You see, precious ones, when the pores of knowledge are clogged with the turpitude of the world, it is difficult even for infinite peace to come in and occupy the space within being that is now filled almost to the point of saturation with the disturbances of outer conditions. When individuals will reckon with the infinite intelligence of God as a manifest beneficence surrounding them, but not interpenetrating the core of their being. They will have the correct eye picture of those conditions which are necessary of understanding, so that you will open the door through the pores of being to the peace of God, and permit the washing of the spiritual flow of energy to flush from your mortal system all those conditions which bring about attitudes of unhappiness. It is never the will of the Infinite One that mankind should be tossed hither and thither, even upon the prongs of their own creation. Human creation, precious ones, is at best but an imitation of the divine. And when individuals understand that, and that their birthright is the divine creation, they will have the key that will cause them to put down these outer conditions so disquieting. They will understand then that their own birthright is the flow of infinite peace. And then they will have that peace at all times. Even as Christ stood before Pilate, who interrogated him in the fashionable manner of the day and with the full authority of Rome, yet maintained his quiet within himself, facing at that moment the threats of the entire Roman power. He was able to say, "You have no power except it be given you of God." And in this magnificent display of the power of his mind as supreme, he exhibited before men of all ages the wonders of a mind of peace. Now, precious ones, when outer conditions ride in or attempt to make themselves heard, if you will but understand that the power of peace is around you, and that the power of peace is omnipresent in life, you will open that door and you will enter in to the internal communion of that condition which is the fullness of cosmic balance, taking into account all aspects of law, justice, judgment, and righteousness, understanding how that individuals themselves are brought constantly into a relationship with other individuals in order that they may be tumbled in the great wheel of life experience and polished, as it were, until they become a white stone of infinite perfection. There are always trying times that come to individuals seeking perfection, for if they were content to bask in outer world comfortability and illusion, they might not have these experiences or recognize their need. But because individuals have dedicated themselves to the infinite purpose, they will be tried by the fires of perfection for the securing of their immortal destiny. And there is no power in the universe that can stop the flow of that destiny once individuals have themselves elected it and God has answered their call. However, let all understand that the necessary corrections of the sacred fire will produce at the end of the course the beauty of peace and perfection. Precious ones, you cannot afford to have outer peace at the price of soul sacrifice. And I wish to make this clear, that it is always necessary for individuals to remove the mask of human imperfection, whatever conditions may seem to manifest. They must understand the difference between the outer self and the divine self, and they must understand simultaneously the similitude of the outer self to the divine self. Now, if I seem, precious ones, to be speaking in riddles or in enigma. Understand that there is no enigma to true identity, but the enigma is the creation of the sophistry of the false mind, which seems to set up its own patterns of density, providing for separation between God and man. Thus there seemeth to be unto mankind two individuals, the identity of God and the identity of self, whereas in reality there is but one. This then is the breaking down of the middle wall of partition between the outer self and the internal perfection of Almighty God. I urge upon you that you assimilate the wisdom that I am bringing forth this morning and bind it upon your foreheads and upon your right hand. For this instruction is the key to your feelings of divine peace and power, to the release of accomplishment into your worlds, and the stopping of the activity of sinister forces and strategies as they seek to take their toll of your thought and feeling world by precipitate information coming from the outer world and its sources, and seeking to disturb the eternal equanimity of the Christ mind. You are children of the light when you walk in it, and when you do not, you remain in the world as a part of outer conditions, which will never produce, as I have said before, the harmony of internal realms. The great white brotherhood, in the midst of all tumult and confusion of the outer world, constantly seek the passing of instruction that will school mankind in the proper relationship of life with one part and another. All life does not understand that it is all a part of one whole, and therefore must be treated as such. You cannot afford, precious ones, using the divine psychology of immortality, to go to the outer world and say to them, I am one with you, for they will think you but a fool. You must understand that this knowing must be within the quietude of your own being, and the activity of your mind must reign as supreme in its intent of Christ's manifestation, regardless of what the individual may think or say with whom you may be associated at a given moment of outer tumult. Through this instruction, I am determined to weld together those individual hearts who will serve hierarchy as a bond of contact, a point of divine creation, in contradistinction to the motives of outer individuals and their conglomerate groupings. You must understand that there are compartments of identity created by mortal thought and feeling, whereby affinitized individuals fall into a relationship with other parts of life that is harmonious by reason of their identification with sources of mortal creativity. Thus, like may attract like. But I want to point out to you that this harmony that may exist between some of these individuals is often but the harmony of outer conditions, which has no relationship whatsoever between the true peace of hearts who understand the need for recognition of the wholeness of all life as the Prince of Peace understood. Gracious ones, amplify the power of peace through correct understanding of the law, and understand that God, in his identity, holds the full pattern of immeasurable, consecrated cosmic peace, waiting to release that peace into your world with such an intensity as to sweep you into the higher consciousness and out of human doldrums. Gracious ones, there is such a need for the manifestation of peace as it is correctly understood, that a dispensation has been granted whereby I am able this day to release into your octave the greater measure of cosmic Christ peace, as it is experienced in the angelic realms through understanding of the law and through adoration to divine principle as the living essence of Almighty God. Won't you please be seated? The time has come, and you have called for it, when immeasurable understanding must be radiated through the student body, and all must come to a greater realization of what it means to have a release of our words in either spoken or printed form into your octave, free from the commercialization of the credulous and the desire to exploit mankind and his intent. I want you to understand, precious ones, then, that this dispensation has been spat upon by those who know not what they do. They will one day reap the full thorns of their own mind and consciousness, and they will have to face the meaning of dwelling in outer darkness without the power of our word from our octave of light. They will indeed hunger and thirst after righteousness, but their fulfillment of that righteousness will be deferred, for they have not entered into the kingdom of heaven themselves, and they have attempted to hinder those who are entering in. I therefore this day, the Elohim of peace, send forth this solemn warning to all engaged in spiritual activity, in all faiths and in all races. Hearken unto the voice of cosmic authority and understanding that abides within thyself, and take heed lest ye cast a stone of offense against your brother, and know not that you are fighting the very powers of light that you profess to serve. The hour has come when those who dwell in trespasses and sins have heard the voice of the Son of God, and in their hearing they possess the power, if they will only respond, to awakening from the dead. They possess the power of awakening themselves through the quickening power of God that is within themselves. Yet they know it not, and often do but in ignorance oppose the very light of God that would bestow upon them, oh, so many gracious gifts. Understand then that we would disseminate in the name of Christ's peace a full measure of understanding that everyone who saith, Lord, Lord, does not do the will of God, and that men must possess with their peace the power of Christ's discrimination that seeks to lift up the spirit of holiness and to uphold the law not only in its letter but in its spirit, which is brotherhood, unlimited, poured out with Christ's discrimination and understanding, upholding God's law at the same time that men uphold the concept of brotherhood. If men uphold the concept of brotherhood and do despot to the spirit of grace, it is not an activity of true brotherhood or divine comprehension. Divine grace will flood the world when men will understand the authority of God as a flame of active participation in universal release of life to all. They must comprehend that the portion of life that they have within their own domain and within their own free will is a gift given unto them as a means of attracting more of God, and that they thus will bask in greater good in time to come than that good which presently manifests in their world in a seemingly limited portion. The power of God unto salvation is able to quiet the storms within the human psyche and produce the perfection of Almighty God, if men and women will only understand that. In that understanding is a key that releases the love needed in this age. For without peace in the manifestation of love and power and wisdom and all other conditions, you would find, precious ones, that error would creep in, and mankind would find themselves closed in round about by the human fences they have made to defend their own outer personality, when that personality is no part of reality. I trust then that all will understand immortality as supreme to mortality, and will comprehend the victory of the light in the fulfilling of their cosmic spiritual desires as superior than all those outer conditions of self-seeking that would but bank the cosmic fires. Grace, peace, tranquility, and gratitude be multiplied unto you all, and to all men who abide upon the planetary body, in the name of the risen and ascended Jesus Christ consciousness, which is the victory that overcomes the world. I thank you in God's name, and I bid you an abundant good afternoon.